in today's video I wanted to show you how I did this neutral color design. But before we start, remember that it's so important to always prep the nails. And I've already done that, so now what I'm going to do is these cuts on the side because they serve me as a guide. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be doing square shaped nails, so that's the reason why I applied the form completely straight. And now that I have everything ready, I'm going to start by applying the first bead between the natural nail and the form. You guys know that I like to start this way, and I'm going to keep pushing the acrylic down until the nails are pretty long. If you guys don't want the nails to be this long, that's fine because the design is also going to work on short nails. Now that I have this first step done, I'm going to apply the last bead, and here what I like to do is that first I connect it with what I already built, and then I'm going to push the acrylic up until the entire nail is well covered. And of course, just like always, I'm going to apply some pressure on the sides because you guys know that this is going to make the nail look more natural. In my opinion, this step is one of the most important, so make sure that you don't miss it. You guys do square nails, you know that one of the most crucial steps is to make sure that the sides are completely straight. And to be honest, that can be a little bit hard. So what I like to do is that I use the lines of the form like a guide, so it's a lot easier for me to make sure that the sides are as straight as possible. And now that I have the square shape done, I'm gonna apply the last acrylic bead. And here I'm going to be doing the exact same thing that I told you. I'm going to make sure that everything is well covered. When you guys are doing this shape, something that you have to make sure is that the form has to be completely straight and symmetrical. Because otherwise what's going to happen is that your nail can end up being crooked, and trust me, that's going to ruin the entire design. When I apply acrylic, the way I like to move it is that I use my brush and I do little taps slowly, and then I keep pushing it downwards until it's the shape that I like. You guys know that acrylic dries out by itself, so it can not only dry on the nail, but it can possibly dry on the brush, and trust me, that's gonna ruin it. So what I do is that I keep a paper on the side and I use my monomer to keep cleaning the brush as often as possible. And now onto the last nail for this tutorial. First, I'm going to put the form, and I'm going to start by applying the first bead between the natural nail and the form, and slowly I'm going to keep pushing the acrylic down until I create the square shape that I like. I'm going to be doing this the exact same way that I told you. I'm going to keep doing little taps on the acrylic until I move it where I want it to go. And now that I have the shape done, I'm going to apply the last bead, and here I'm going to make sure that the entire nail is well covered. But something you have to remember is that it's very important to never touch the cuticle or the skin because that can cause lifting. And of course, I'm going to apply some pressure on the sides. And this is how these square nails look like. They're not perfect, but that's why I always say that filing is one of the most important steps. When I file nails, I like to start filing the sides. So since this is a square nail, I'm going to put the file completely straight. This is how the nails look like after filing the sides. Now the only thing left to do is to file the surface, and I like to use my e-file for that, but if you guys want to, you can use a regular one. And here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to file down these nails until they're pretty thin, and also I'm going to make sure that there's no bumps left behind. This is how these square nails look like. Now everything is done and we're ready to do the design. Before we start, I recommend you to clean off the nails because after filing, there's always going to be some dust left behind. And for today's tutorial, you guys know that it's going to be all about neutrals and colors that remind me of the fall. So the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to apply the base color. And I chose this really pretty, almost white neutral because I feel like this type of colors go with everything. And since it's pretty light, I'm actually gonna go over it twice. You guys know that I like to use gel polishes, and what that means is that for them to dry, you have to cure them. So I'm gonna be curing each layer for about 30 seconds or so. That can vary depending on the brand of the gel polish that you're using. And this is how the base looks like. I think that this color looks so pretty and it's gonna go very well with the rest of the fall colors. But the next thing that we're gonna do is that we're gonna need this really thin nail art brush, because we're gonna be creating this type of French nails. And for today's tutorial, I'm gonna be using about 3 types of browns. I'm gonna use one that is the lightest, then one that's medium, and the other one that's going to be the darkest brown. And here on this first nail, I'm gonna start with the medium one. And here what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna fill up everything until it's well covered. On this second nail, we're actually gonna leave it like that for now because we're gonna be creating a different type of design, but I'm gonna tell you about that in a little bit. On the second one, I'm gonna be using the lightest brown, and I'm also going to be creating this French nail. And I'm gonna be doing the same thing on the third one. The way that I'm creating this French nail is that first I'm doing the guideline, and then I'm going to fill everything up. And of course, like you guys can tell, on the third one, I'm actually gonna use the darkest brown. And this is how it looks like. I think that combining these type of tones looks so pretty, and it's gonna go perfect for the fall. And of course, I'm gonna cure everything for about 1 minute. Now, moving on to the second one, remember that I told you that we're gonna do a different design, is that we're actually gonna be creating a heart. And the way that I did this is that first I did about 3 dots, because that's gonna serve me as a guide for me to connect the dots and be able to create this shape. And now that I have this done, I'm gonna start filling it up with the lightest brown. Like you guys are able to tell, we're actually going to be using the same brown tones that I showed you for the French nails. And something that I recommend you when you guys are doing this design is to cure each color, because otherwise they're gonna start mixing and it's going to be a complete mess. Now that I'm done using the light brown, I'm gonna go ahead and use the medium one, which is actually the one that we used on the first nail. And here what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go over the heart that we created. And like you guys can tell, I'm not really doing very thick lines. And also something important is that you guys have to make sure that everything is symmetrical, because we're gonna be adding more colors, and otherwise what can happen is that the heart can end up being crooked. And now that I'm done doing the third line with the darkest brown, I'm gonna start all over using the lightest one. And here something different is that I'm gonna make sure that this light brown line is actually the thickest one. I feel like combining sizes is going to make the entire design look a lot more interesting, because otherwise it's going to be too repetitive. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go with the darkest brown again, and I'm gonna be making a pretty thin line. And to finish up, I'm gonna cover everything that is left with the color that we used on the first nail. And this is how it looks like. Honestly, if you guys can, I recommend you to do this heart using gel paint, because gel paint is a thicker product, so it's going to be much easier to create this design. And now to finish up, because I thought it looked too simple, I'm gonna be using a darker brown, and I'm gonna go over the French nails. I'm just going to be making a pretty thin line. And this is how this neutral design looks like, but we're not completely done yet, because all we have to do is apply a little bit of this top coat. You guys know that this is not only gonna add a really pretty shine, but it's also going to protect the design that we created, and it's going to make everything last longer. Here, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna apply it on top of all of the nails, and I'm gonna cure everything for about 60 seconds. And this is how the final design looks like. I think this was the first time that I created an only neutral tutorial, but I think it was pretty simple. The only thing is that you guys have to keep changing colors. I hope that you guys like this tutorial. If you did, please subscribe and like this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!